everyone. Welcome to Barca News. It is July 20th, 2026. And I got good news, good financial news because John Laporta, well, he took advantage of his trip to the U.S. I'm going to tell you how. Also, Barcelona have a key meeting scheduled with Ferran Torres for next week. And finally, Jules Kounde, well, he has closed the door on any speculation in regards to his future. We have a lot to discuss, so let's begin. Hello everyone, welcome to the channel. My name is Boo, and welcome to the Barca News Live podcast, which is on every Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays, where not only we discuss Barcelona news, but where I get to interact with you lovely people, my Barca News family, by reading your comments and reacting to them live. So start filling out the chat section with your questions, your comments, anything you want to add to this discussion. For those of you who be watching when the podcast ends, I will be putting timestamps in the description and chapters in the timeline in case you do want to skip through the discussion and get straight into the news. Having said all that, make sure to hit the like button, subscribe to the channel, drop a comment. All this helps the channel continue to grow. If you're looking for any Barcelona jerseys or merchandise, you can head to Kickback. You can also get merchandise from any other teams around the world. If you're looking to place any sports bets, you can head to Bet Us. And if you're looking for merchandise from other sports, you can head to Fanatics. All links in the description. You click on them. You get access to deals and offers that otherwise you would not get access to if you went straight to those websites. All right, let's begin. Let's begin with the news. As always, the first segment of news is comprised of multiple bits of news combined together. And let's begin with good news because, ladies and gentlemen, the president of La Liga, Javier Tebas, was asked about Barcelona's 1-1 rule. If you don't know by now because you just started watching the channel recently, or maybe you missed the million videos I posted about the 1-1 rule. The 1-1 rule is, of course, the rule that allows Barcelona or any club in La Liga to spend freely when it comes to signing players and register them, right? For every euro you make, you can spend that full euro on signing a player. That's why it's called 1-to-1. For each euro you make, you can spend that euro on a signing or registering a player. Barcelona haven't been under this rule for the past 5 years. Why? Because, of course, given Barcelona's financial troubles, right? But because financial fair play, what financial fair play aims to do, and it's not just to make it a little bit more fair, but it also aims to protect clubs, right? So if a club is going through financial trouble, a club is spending more than what they're bringing in or has a lot of debt or a combination of those, La Liga says, all right, we need to slow down that club's spending. Now, you technically cannot tell a club, hey, don't spend on this player, right? Because it's their money. They can do whatever the hell they want with it. But a way to discourage that club that's going through financial hardship from spending is by making it difficult for them to register players, right? And this is where the 1-to-1 rule comes in, right? For example, for a while, we were under the 1-to-4 rule, which means for every euro that we made, we would only be able to spend 25 cents or a quarter, right? So even though we were still free to do whatever the hell we wanted with our money, by making it this difficult for us to register players, it kind of like discouraged us from making big signings. So this is what the 1-to-1 rule is aimed to do, right? Discourage clubs who are going through financial trouble from spending. Why? So they don't go bankrupt and they end up disappearing, because actually football is riddled with clubs who just cease to exist because they overspent, they went bankrupt, and they just disappeared, right? So that's what the 1-to-1 rule is. We haven't been under the 1-to-1 rule for the past 5 years. Barcelona, of course, were confident that they were going to make the 1-to-1 rule this summer. And, well, Javier Tebas was asked, hey, is Barcelona under the 1-to-1 rule? And this is what the La Liga president had to say. Yes, it's a 1-to-1. Based on the transfers they made, it has to be. Now, of course, it hasn't been officially announced yet because La Liga has yet to publish each club's financial fair play. Of course, June 30th was the final day of the fiscal year where all clubs turned over their financial paperwork to La Liga, showing La Liga how much money they made, how much money they spent, how much money they paid in salaries and transfer fees, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And based on that, La Liga is going to issue each club a wage limit and it's going to tell each club, hey, you're under the 1-1 or you're spending too much, so we're going to take you off the 1-1, etc., etc. So it's not official yet, but Javier Tebas is saying that Barcelona, well, should be under the 1-1 rule based on what the club has accomplished so far. And that, of course, is a huge, huge relief because, again, Barcelona hasn't been under this rule for the past 5 years. It's been incredibly difficult to sign and register players, but now under the 1-1 rule, things are going to be much easier. Now, remember, this just means that you can register more easily. This doesn't mean unlimited money. Doesn't mean all of a sudden we can go sign Haaland and Mbappe, right? You still need the cash. The 1-1 rule just allows you to spend your cash freely as opposed to putting restriction on it. But at the end of the day, you still need the cash, right? The cash is not just going to appear out of nowhere. You still need the money. 1-1 rule just means you can spend that money however you want. Now, what has Barcelona done to get back under the 1-1 rule after so many years? Of course, many things. Barcelona did cut its spending and lowered its wage bill. They increased their income by moving into the Camp Nou, by signing more sponsorships. Also, as far as the wage bill, right? Lewandowski did not renew his contract. That removed a huge salary because Lewandowski had the highest salary on the squad. So they removed a huge salary off our wage bill. Ansu Fati had an incredibly high salary as well. That salary is gone too since Ansu Fati made a move to Monaco. But not only that, we also made 11 million euros. So that was a double win. On one hand, you remove a huge salary. On the other hand, you also make 11 million euros. So all these things combined has now allowed Barcelona to become to be under the 1-1 rule after many, many years of not being under it, which, of course, again, is going to help us a lot as far as our signing. Now, the only problem, of course, is that next summer, Barcelona are expecting not to be under the 1-1 rule because, of course, we will be moving to Montjuic, not this season. Next season, 2027-2028, we will be moving to Montjuic for the first half of the season while the Camp Nou roof is being built. And that means that Barcelona's income is going to be reduced because we make a lot less money at Montjuic. It's less capacity, plus not a lot of people want to go there. So that means that next summer it's expected that we won't be under the 1-1 rule. This is why Barcelona trying to make as many signings as possible this summer, maybe some in the winter as well. That way next summer we don't have to sign because we should be, fine as far as our players and our squad. Now, speaking of income, we do have to talk about Joan Laporta's trip to the U.S. because Laporta has been in the U.S. for the past week, I think about 5 days if I'm not mistaken. He flew to Dallas when Spain played their semifinal against France. Total domination by Spain, making the strongest team in the World Cup look like a bunch of amateurs. And then, of course, the final was in New York yesterday. Spain-Argentina, again, Spain doing their thing and making Argentina look like a bunch of amateurs. So Joan Laporta was also in New York. And during his trip, Joan Laporta took advantage of this time he being here to expand Barcelona's business ties. Now, we know that Deco was here as well. Deco arrived before Joan Laporta. And Deco wasn't just here to watch Barcelona players during their matches and to watch the World Cup. He was also here on business, right? He was here to expand Barcelona's network, right? He met with a lot of football agents who were also here for the World Cup. He met with other club sporting directors. And even though these meetings were not about specific players, this was about, Deco expanding his network to get to know more sporting directors, more agents, more players and things like that. Because as you know, in the world of business, it's not about what you know, it's who you know. That's the most important thing, for better or for worse. Where Joan Laporta did exactly the same, and he met with representatives and executives from many companies here in the U.S., the biggest one being Fanatics. Joan Laporta met with the reps from Fanatics. Of course, Fanatics, again, if you want to buy anything from them, there's a link in the description. You get access to deals and offers. But the reason why Joan Laporta met with many of these execs, including Fanatics' execs, is in order to see if, Barcelona can maybe sign a sponsorship deal or some kind of business deals with many of these companies that are located here in the U.S. And, of course, a lot of them being in New York, since New York City is the financial capital of the world. So Joan Laporta, during these meetings, of course, was leveraging Barcelona's global appeal while trying to take advantage of the U.S. commercial potential, because, as you know, The U.S. is the biggest economy in the world, so what a better place than trying to, score a deal or a sponsorship or some kind of business agreement with the millions of companies that are here in the U.S. Now, nothing has formally come out of these meetings, but again, as you know, in the business world, it's not about what you know, it's who you know. And this was John Laporta increasing his network and, well, increasing the who you know part of surviving the business world and, well, potentially increasing Barcelona's income. I'm sure something will come out of this. As you know, there's been plenty of videos in the past where I reported Laporta meeting with executives in some country where Barcelona were, only to report a few months later that Barcelona had signed an agreement. For example, when Laporta was in Dubai, and he ended up negotiating that agreement to sponsor the luxury residential complex. I'm sure something will come out of this, which, of course, would be great news because it would only mean that Barcelona will increase its income, something that we need to do because it's not okay that this summer we're under the 1-1 rule and next summer, just by moving stadiums, we're not under the 1-1 rule. We should be, more fiscally solvent to where even if we move stadiums, we should still be fine and still be under the 1-1 rule. For example, Real penalties, right? They went through the same pandemic that we did, and they never left the 1-1 rule. They too left the Bernabeu that was being remodeled and moved into a much smaller stadium, their Castilla stadium, their reserve team stadium, and they didn't get out of there from the 1-1 rule, right? And that's where we need to be. We need to be financially solvent enough where even if we did move stadiums, we should still be fine and not all of a sudden be broke and be making less than what we're actually earning. Now, the last bit of news, and this is more good news because it's expected that Jesse Bisiwu will be arriving in Barcelona this week in order to finalize his move. Of course, Jesse Bisiwu currently is a Club NXT player or the reserve team of Club Brugge, someone that Barcelona have been tracking for a very long time. Barcelona tried to sign him last summer. They tried to sign him last winter. It didn't work because Club Brugge were asking for a lot of money. And, of course, Jesse Bisiwu's contract does expire next summer in 2027. He insisted on not renewing, even though Club Brugge put him in the stands and did not allow him to play, to try to force him to renew. But the youngster held steadfast. He did not agree to renew. And, well, given that this was the last summer, the last chance that Club Brugge had to make money for him, they eventually reach an agreement with Barcelona where Barcelona will pay 10 million euros for the youngster, and Club Brugge will retain 30% of any future sale, which, if you ask me, I think it's a horrible deal. But it is what it is. Barcelona have signed Jesse Bisiwu, the 18-year-old left winger, someone who has been compared a lot to Dembele because of the profile that he is, kind of like that speed, explosive player that can take on defenders, great shot, great cross, things like that. But now Jesse Bisiwu will become a Barca Athletic player for this first season, even though it's expected that he will complete the preseason with Hansi Flick. But then he will go back down to Barca Athletic to help Giuliano Belletti get promoted from 4th to 3rd division, with the hopes that one day Jesse Bisiwu can become a first-team player. So Bisiwu was expected to arrive this week, where Barcelona will be making this signing official. All right, let's start with the comment section, and then we are going to talk about Ferran Torres, Sharquinho. Today we get to call him Sharquinho. Most of the time we get to call him Sardinho. Let me take a sip of my drink. Let's see. Akib says, holy shit, first time to actually catch a live for the full time. Well, welcome, my friend. Welcome. I hope you're able to catch more lives. But welcome. And David says that goal has increased Ferran's sale price by at least 10 mil. I hope so, my friend. I mean, Ferran just became a World Cup winner, so his price should be higher. And he scored the only goal of the match, which allowed him to become, and his teammates, World Cup winners. So Deco better take advantage of this. And Raul says, good to catch up with you today. Congratulations to all Barca players in the Spain team. They deserve it. Keep up the good work, Bo. God bless you, Visca Barca. God bless you, my friend, and God bless everyone watching this live, whether right now or later. Visca Barca indeed. And yes, what a year to be a culé. What 2 amazing years, actually, not just this year. Last year, of course, finished finishing the season with 3 trophies: La Liga, the Copa del Rey, and the Spanish Super Cup. This last season, La Liga and the Spanish Super Cup, winning, what was it, 7 out of 8 El Clasico matches. Now seeing 8 Barcelona players win the World Cup. By the way, 2010, Spain also had 8 Barcelona players, which goes to see that Spain has won what it has won in great part thanks to Barcelona. Because remember, these are not only players who are Barca players playing for the Spanish team. These are also players that came up through the Barcelona Academy in both squads, right? 2010, Iniesta, Xavi, Puyol, Busquets. All these were not just Barca players, Piqué. These were Barca players that came up through the Academy of Barcelona and helped Spain win a Euros, a World Cup, and another Euros. And now, again, 8 Barcelona players, many of them came up through the Academy. Lamine, Kouarsi, Dani Olmo, Gabi, Eric Garcia, all Academy players. Cucurella is a Chelsea player, but he's also an Academy player. Grimaldo, he's going to sign for Atletico Madrid. He's also an Academy player, which goes to show, and by the way, this is the squad that won Olympic gold, right? Kouarsi and Eric Garcia. They just won the World Cup and they won the Euros. So Barcelona is a big, big, big reason for Spain's success. And the haters in Spain need to start accepting them, right? Because for the longest time, for many, many decades, right, Real Madrid was seen as the Spain's team, right? In the capital, Franco's team, the dictatorship's team, you know, the one that flies the Spanish flag. Oh, Real Madrid is Spain. They used to chant that in stadiums. Real Madrid is Spain. And yet, the irony, right? Barcelona, that was the symbol of Catalan independence movement, you know, that traitor club, the club whose president was assassinated by Franco, the club who was shut down by Franco, the club that was not allowed to fly the Catalan flag or speak Catalan or anything that had to do with Catalonia was shut down. It's the club that has given Spain glory, or one of the biggest reasons why Spain has all the glory that it has. Where's Real Madrid? Not a single player on their squad in this World Cup winning squad. Yeah, sure, they signed Cucurella, but he's still officially registered as a Chelsea player, so he's not even a Real Madrid player. And so the irony is just hilarious. It's just absolutely hilarious. By the way, I cannot wait to order my Spain jersey with the 2nd star, and I'm gonna get the Pau Kouarsi one because, my God, Pau Kouarsi, the best center back in the entire World Cup. Of course, he did win the young player of the tournament. What a performance. But it wasn't just him, right? Olmo, incredible World Cup. I really hope that Olmo can play like that for Barcelona the way he plays for Spain. And then Ferran Torres, man. Ferran Torres is just, nothing about Ferran makes sense. Nothing about Ferran makes sense. Because if you didn't know who Ferran was, right, and you watched his numbers, and you're like, wow, this player is pretty good, right? You see how many goals he scores, how many assists. You're like, wow, this player is pretty good. And then you turn on the TV and you're like, wait a minute. Are we sure these numbers belong to that guy? Because he fucking sucks, right? I mean, he misses the easiest shots. He misses open goal shots, 1v1 shots. He misses empty goals shots. I mean, he misses everything. And then, boom, he scores 1 goal. He missed like 1 million chances the whole World Cup, and he only scores 1 out of 1 million. And which one that is? Of course, it's the goal that gives his country its 2nd star. I mean, it's absolutely hilarious with Ferran Torres. And, you know, out of all the stars, right, in the World Cup, you know, Mbappe, Haaland, Kane, Messi, out of all these stars, it had to be Ferran Torres that scores the winning goal in the final, the only goal in the final that gives his country another World Cup. I mean, it's just, Ferran Torres is something else, man. It's something else. It's like the football gods just want to mess with us, you know. Well, let's see. Nathan says Deco better increase the asking price for Ferran and get a striker and a 2nd striker, but we have to wait and see what happens. We're going to talk about Ferran in a little bit. James says, call me a glory hunter, but I'm an American living in Sweden. Support Barca and follow 8 Spain players. Supporting Spain feels pretty natural. Let's go. Where in Sweden do you live? I would love to visit, by the way. It looks absolutely gorgeous. Ryan says, why buy Julian when we could use all this money to buy multiple players? Just look at his performance in the World Cup. He was horrible because that's what Flick wants and that's what Deco wants. So, I don't think he's worth what Atletico are asking for or even what Barcelona are willing to pay for. But if that's what Flick wants and that's what Deco wants, I mean, what else can we do, right? I just hope that we are wrong about him and that if he does end up signing for Barcelona, that he ends up showing us that he's worth that and much, much more, right? Obalu says, congratulations, Barcelona, Bisca Barça indeed, but who is pay? And let's see, Hab says, Mo, I feel for Fermin, he could, bro, oh my God. I was literally thinking just that today because today I was on my phone on Instagram and then I see Barcelona's post. And if you haven't seen it, Barcelona posted all 8 Barca players with the World Cup trophy, right? And I'm like going through these pictures, seeing Kovacic, seeing Lamine, seeing Dani Olmo, and I'm thinking, wow, Fermin Lopez was supposed to be there, right? And he gets injured at the end of the season against Real Betis, a match that meant absolutely nothing because Barcelona were already champions. We had already won La Liga. And he gets injured in a match that made zero difference because we were already champs. And as a result of this injury, he misses going to the World Cup. He had already been called up, right? Like he was supposed to be there. And then Spain win the World Cup. Can you imagine how that must have felt for him? I'm sure he was happy, obviously, for his countrymen, for his country and for his teammates, but to think that he could have been there if it wasn't for that stupid match against Real Betis, which again had zero implication because we had already won La Liga. I mean, if you tell me, okay, he got injured, I don't know, in the semifinal of the Champions League, you're like, he had to be there. We had to win. But he had no reason to be there. I mean, just heartbreaking. And let's do the last comment and then we'll move on to the next bit of news. But the Jeff says, Flick, please do something on our defensive tactics. This is our only focus on offside trap. Made a lot of us to turn to Kovacic. It can't only be poor pressing that causes defensive issues. It's definitely is poor pressing. It's 100% poor pressing. Because if you don't press up front, that's always going to leave your defense exposed. Always. All right, let's move on to the next bit of news because we do have to talk about the man of the hour, the guy who gave Spain their second star, their second World Cup of this 21st century and the second World Cup of their history. To me, honestly, I think Spain is now the best team of the 21st century. Of course, it is a little bit early. It's only 26 years in this 21st century. It's a long way to go, right? We're only a quarter of the way through the century. But so far, to me, I think Spain is the best team of the 21st century. We're talking about 2 World Cups and 3 Euros. That's pretty impressive. But anyways, it was Ferran Torres' goal that gave Spain their second trophy. Maybe I should say that gave him the win because at the end of the day, it's the whole team that got Spain to the final. And it was Ferran that sealed the deal with the goal. Because Barcelona are set to have a crucial meeting, a key meeting with Ferran Torres for next week. Now, as we know, of course, Ferran Torres' contract expires next summer in 2027. Barcelona initially were not too keen on renewing him because, of course, his season horrible, right? He gives you 1-2 great matches followed by 10 to 15 bad ones. Very inconsistent, in other words. But first, Barcelona wanted to see what was going to happen with Lewy because the plan was to sign a center forward. It's now Julian. But Barcelona needed to know who was going to be that substitute for Julian or whomever we end up signing, right? So they wanted to see what happened with Lewandowski. If Lewandowski stayed, he was going to be the substitute for whoever we sign as a center forward. If Lewy was going to leave, well, then Ferran Torres was going to be the substitute. And in that case, Barcelona wanted to renew him. Now, Lewandowski, of course, announced he was leaving. He has now signed for Chicago Fire here in the MLS. So, of course, that left Ferran Torres as the substitute for whoever we sign in that center forward position be it Julian Alvarez or someone else. So then Barcelona contacted Ferran and said, hey, we want to renew you. You have 1 year left on your contract. Let's renew. Now, Ferran's agent demanded a lot of money for Ferran and wanted kind of a starting position for Ferran, citing the departure of Lewy, saying, hey, Barca, Lewy's leaving. Ferran should be the starter. He should be the star. And, well, he should be paid accordingly. Of course, Barcelona were not willing to pay to meet the financial demands of Ferran and his agent. And, of course, they were not going to promise that Ferran was going to be the starter or the star, right? Because that's not how Barcelona operates, right? Every player that signs for Barcelona needs to know that they're going to have to fight for their position. It doesn't matter who you are. Look at Lewy, one of the greatest strikers in our generation. He spent last season mostly on the bench because it doesn't matter who you are. At Barcelona, you have to fight for your spot. So Barcelona doesn't guarantee a starting position for anyone. It doesn't matter who you are. You have to earn that position. So Barcelona were not willing to guarantee that, nor were they willing to meet Ferran Torres' financial demands. So, of course, Ferran Torres then got the call from PSG. He reached a verbal agreement. The agreement was that once the World Cup was over, Ferran was going to sit down with PSG in order to negotiate a transfer because Luis Enrique, well, he wants Ferran Torres, right? It was Luis Enrique that gave him the opportunity or the shot when back when he was Spain's national coach or the Spain's national team's coach. And of course, PSG need to rebuild their offensive line, even though they're starting three, Dembélé, Doué, and Kvaratskhelia are still there. All the substitutes are set to leave, right? They're talking about Barcolas looking for the next destination. Gonzalo Ramos is gone. They're talking about Koulibaly is also going to be gone. So PSG need to rebuild their line of attack. And Ferran Torres is someone that Luis Enrique wants as part of that, second line of attack. So Barcelona are now set to sit down with Ferran Torres next week, where they're going to sit down face-to-face and say, hey, what's going on? Do you want to leave? Do you want to renew? Where do you want to leave? Things like that to better get to know the player's posture, because so far, everything we've heard about Ferran and PSG have been through the media. There hasn't been official communication between Ferran and the club to say, yes, I want to leave, or no, I don't want to leave. These are just rumors, blah, blah, anything like that, right? So Barcelona haven't actually heard from the player, directly from the player. So next week will be a key meeting. Now, what's Barcelona's position? Barcelona's position is that they still count on Ferran, right? To them, nothing has happened. So to them, Ferran is a Barcelona player, and they counted on him for next season. They would prefer to renew him because, of course, we need a substitute to whoever we sign, whether it be Julian Alvarez or someone else. But, of course, they're not willing to meet Ferran Torres' high financial demands. So I'm sure that's going to be part of the conversation. I'm sure Barcelona's going to say, look, we want you to stay. We're not going to pay you what you're asking for. And we're not going to guarantee that you're a star. Hey, if we sign Julian and you end up shining more than him, then sure, you'll be the starter. But if not, well, you got to earn your spot. And Ferran, of course, will give his position to Barcelona. We'll see what happens. But I got to say this. If Barcelona and Ferran do agree that he has to leave, I hope that Deco can negotiate a good deal for him. Because, as I said a few moments ago, Ferran just became a World Cup winner, which means his price just skyrocketed. And he was the one who scored that winning goal, the only goal of the final. So if the two parties end up agreeing that Ferran has to go, I really hope that Deco does a good job and gets good money for him because, well, it's enough with the whole giving away players away, right? I know we're not a selling club, but that doesn't mean we have to be a dumbass club. Because one thing is not to be a selling club. Another thing is to be a dumbass club, right? A selling club is obviously a club that signs players with the idea of increasing their value and then selling them so to make a profit, right? That's a business model that exists in football. That's not our business model, right? We don't sign players in hopes that their value would increase so then we can sell them for profit. If we sign a player thinking he's going to be a star, well, we're going to sign him so he can stay at the club for as long as possible and can help Barcelona win trophies, right? That's the whole idea. If we were a selling club, Lamine Yamal would have been sold a long time ago, right? Lamine, we signed him for $0 or €0. Now he's worth $250. Sell him, make a shitload of money. I mean, that's one of the best business deals ever. But that's not the idea, right? The idea is to keep him forever, or as long as we can have him, so he can win us trophies, right? So yeah, we're not a selling club, but that doesn't mean we get to give away players, right? And enough is enough with giving away players. If Ferran and Barcelona agree that yes, let's go our separate ways, Deco better get his act together and get a good amount for Ferran, because again, he's a World Cup winner. He scored the winning goal. We should sell him for what he's actually worth. And we would be selling him to PSG, a club that has incredibly deep pockets. So this is not like, oh, well, the other club doesn't have that much money, so we can. No. Enough with the BS. Let's do it the right way. Now, would I sell Ferran Torres? Look, I've been wanting Ferran Torres out of this club since the day he arrived. He's an incredibly inconsistent player. He does not have the quality to be a starter, a starting center forward for a club like Barca. Maybe for a mid-table club like Valencia or, I don't know, Real Betis or something like that. But for a top team like Barcelona, he does not have the quality to be the starting center forward. So I've been wanting him out since the day he arrived. But at the same time, he is pretty good off the bench. I mean, he's a player that makes the best out of the minutes that he gets. Even in the World Cup, right? He consistently came off the bench and he ended up scoring the winning goal, right? That's what Ferran Torres is. A player that's good coming off the bench, not a player that should start. Having said that, would I sell him right now? No. Because right now, if we sell him, of course, that leaves us with 0 center forwards. You know, I would first want to figure out what the hell's going to happen with Julian. And I would also have to figure out, hey, what's going to happen with whomever we're going to bring in his place, right? I know we've talked about Vlahovic. He's offered himself 1 million times for free. We've talked about Aslani, who has paused his transfer to Dortmund to see if there's a possibility of coming to Barca. But whoever it may be, Barcelona first needs to figure out what's going to happen with Julian, what's going to happen with the possible replacement of Ferran. And once Barcelona has its ducks in a row, then sure, you can sell them. But if you don't have your ducks in a row, you can't go sell them and stay with no center forwards, because then what happens if Atletico Madrid say, okay, F you, Julian's not going, and, Aslani ends up signing for Dortmund, Vlahovic gets tired of waiting and goes somewhere else. Bournemouth says, no, I'm not going to sell you, Krupi, and then you're stuck with no center forward, right? That would be a problem. So would I sell him right now? No. I would want Barcelona to first get its ducks in a row, and then I would sell him. Because like I've said 1 million times, I've been wanting Ferran out of this club since the first day because, well, he's incredibly, incredibly inconsistent. But if Barcelona cannot get its ducks in a row, then I would keep him, because at the end of the day, he's still a pretty good sub. He might not have the quality to start, but I think he's a pretty good sub. He's a super sub. But anyways, let me know your thoughts and opinions about Ferran. Would you sell him? Would you not? And if you do want to sell him, how much would you want to get for him? Let me know in the comment section or in the chat section if you're watching this live. And speaking of the chat section, let's get back and do more comments. All right, let's see. Java the Hut says this World Cup showed how important Di Maria was to the team, always reliable when healthy, and he could play, make assists, and create the chances which was needed to take some of the load off Messi. Yes and no. And I'll tell you why. I'm not obviously going to take away from Di Maria, because Di Maria is an amazing player, an incredibly talented player. And Di Maria was key. One of the biggest reasons why Argentina was able to win that final against France. So that's why it's a yes. But at the same time, it's a no, because Di Maria did not play the World Cup mostly in 2022. I don't know if you guys remember, but he mostly played as a sub. So he had very few minutes. And it wasn't until the final that he actually started. And yes, he was key. And I mean, he destroyed France's defense on the final. It was thanks to him that Argentina scored those 2 goals, right? One was actually his goal. The other one was a penalty that he causes that Messi ends up scoring. So yes and no. P4K Chema says, what's up, Mo? I heard that after we secure our striker, we will reinforce the defense. Does that mean someone we will end up leaving? Jules Kounde, Axel Casado, and sign Rodri as a free agent for Frankie de Jong. I don't know where you heard that, but I haven't heard that. Barcelona would sign a center back, but only if 2 things are met. A, good market opportunity. In other words, hey, this is a really good defender that you can get for free or for very low. And B, if someone leaves. Otherwise, Barcelona cannot sign more defenders. There's just no space. And, people argue, well, we need this. It doesn't matter what you need. If you don't have the space, you can't do it, right? If you're driving a car with that seats 5 people and there's 5 people in it, you can't pick up someone else, even if you wanted to, because there's no space. Where are they going to sit? So yeah. As far as selling Frankie, who the hell's going to buy Frankie? Frankie's injured for the next 4 months. No one's going to buy him. Plus, he didn't even want to leave when he had a year left on his contract. He's definitely not going to want to leave now. Actually, less than a year. His contract was supposed to expire 2026. He wouldn't leave when he was very little left on his contract. He's definitely not going to leave now when we renewed him. Still don't know why. Would I love to have Rodri? Absolutely. But don't sleep on Bernal because we have the next Rodri, and his name is Marc Bernal. Johan said, morning Mo, miss you. Why Barca just signed Raul from Mexico as our number 9. I believe he has potential to succeed at Barca. Greetings to you. Talk about Raul Jimenez, their number 9. Isn't he like 32 or something? Let me see. Let's see. Oh, he's 35. Even worse. Well, there's your answer. Why we don't sign him? Because he's 35. So yeah. By the way, he signed for Wolves and Wolves got relegated. So I wonder what's going to happen with him. I wonder if he has a release clause that allows him to leave once a team has relegated. But yeah, we don't need a 35-year-old striker from a second division team. Giant says, yo, big up my man. Greetings from Greece. Let's go. Greece in the house. I like Greece. Klaus says he's a Loki of football. Yeah, you ain't lying. Laurana X says the football gods retiring Messi, gave it to Lamine and having fun with Ferran. Yeah, I mean, it was the perfect metaphor that yesterday's match, right? Because Messi was playing the last match of his last World Cup. Lamine was playing his first World Cup. Messi, the current champion, loses, and Lamine wins and becomes the new champion. I mean, it's the literal end of an era, because that's it, no more World Cup for Messi, and the beginning of a new one, because you have Lamine, who just won the World Cup, and of course is the new 10 of Barcelona, and is the one that we all hope that will lead Barcelona to glory, right? So it's like the perfect metaphor of a match for the end of an era and the beginning of a new one. And then on top of that, we get Ferran, who scores the winning goal. Fucking Ferran. Oh, man. The Rebel Pilot says, remember the days when Madridistas were trying to convince us that Dean Huijsen is better than Kouarsi? Pepperidge Farm remembers. Well, it all started with Asensio, right? Real Madridistas told us Asensio was better. And that didn't last that long because Asensio doesn't even start. That's how terrible he is. And then they told us, no, okay, it's not Asensio. My bad. It's Huijsen. Yeah, where's Huijsen? Because I'm pretty sure he got to watch the World Cup from his home. Right? At the same time, they told us Birmingham was better than Pedri. Then it was Guller better than Pedri. Then they try to compare Mastantuono to Lamine. I mean, can you imagine being that desperate where you compare a player you just signed that's on the bench with the best in the world? It's crazy. But, that's part of their inferiority complex, right? Those last 20 years have been very hard on them. Barcelona constantly owning them and embarrassing them. And they couldn't stomach the fact that the greatest player on earth, Lionel Messi, was a Barcelona player. So, of course, they had to push their own narrative and invent their own debate that somehow Penaldo was better. Penaldo's not even as good as Messi, let alone better. And finally, Messi leaves, and they're like, whew, thank God. And then, boom, there comes Lamine. So now they're back to square one, right? Again, can't stomach that the best player in the world is now a Barcelona player. So now they have to, and then on top of that, we have the best defender in the world, and we have the best midfielder in the world. And they can't stomach all that. Their inferiority complex does not allow them to enjoy greatness. So instead, they have to continue doing what they did during the Penaldo years, which is push this fake narrative that somehow Asensio is better than Kouarsi, or that Huijsen is better than Kouarsi. And it's like, is just desperate and pathetic at this point. It's like, just move on. Why can't you just enjoy these players? I mean, at the end of the day, if you're a Madridista from Spain, these are players who just gave you another World Cup. Just enjoy their greatness. Why do you have to constantly push this fake narrative that someone is better and that someone is this or that? Just enjoy them. Just enjoy them. Haaland is better, is a million times better than Ferran Torres. I'm not going to say Ferran is better just because I can't stomach the fact that the best nine plays for Man City and not Barca. Like, that would be incredibly stupid and embarrassing. So, Madridistas, why do you guys do that? Just enjoy. Enjoy. I mean, but anyways. Matthias Hansen says, Mo, if you could sign one player to Barca from the Norway squad and it couldn't be Haaland, which player would you like? If Ferran leaves, I would want to sign Odegaard in his place. Sorloth. I would want to sign Sorloth in the place of Ferran as the substitute, not as the starting nine. I think Sorloth off the bench would be incredible. Now, I know you probably want me to say Anthony Nusa, but here's the thing about Nusa. We already signed plenty of wingers, so we don't have space for Nusa. Would it be nice to have Nusa? Sure. But right now, there's no space for Nusa. So since there's no space for Nusa, I wouldn't mind having Sorloth as the substitute. Again, not as our starting nine, as the substitute. 7 Requiem says, let's not forget Spain also holds the Women's World Cup too, and they are likely to win it again next year in Brazil. Yeah, and many of those players are also from where? From Barcelona. Let's see. Wiz says, Ferran would fit well at PSG. Let him leave. We can focus on Julian. Look, if Ferran wants to leave, I don't care where he ends up. Good luck to you. As long as we make a good amount of money, then I'm happy. One more comment, and then we'll move on to the next bit of news. But Anna says, what's Barca's strikers' plan if we don't get Julian? And center back's plan, where are we going to sign a new center back? And are we going to sell a center back to sell some players? If Julian doesn't come, the favorite option for Barcelona is Krupi. But there are other options like Osimhen, for example. So we'll see. But of course, the priority remains Julian. As far as center backs, right now there are no plans to sign center backs because, well, we have Cuarci, Gerard Martin, Christensen, Araujo, Eddie Garcia, Kounde, Alvaro Cortés. We have 7 center backs, right? So in order to bring for 2 positions. So in order to bring a center back, people would have to leave first before we bring. Let's see. All right, now let's get back to the news because we do have to talk about... Wait, right here. Roony Bardaghji, because the Barcelona attacker just had a meeting with Hansi Flick where the German coach told him, sorry, bruv, but I do not count on you. Now, Barcelona signed Roony Bardaghji last summer for 2.5 million euros with the hope that, he could shine. Of course, Roony Bardaghji had, I think he scored, how many goals? I can't remember how many goals. I think it was 3 goals, hat-trick against, was it hat-trick? I don't know. He scored a bunch of goals against Manchester United in the Champions League. A lot of European clubs were interested in him, but of course, he then tore his ACL. So any deals to a big European team kind of fell through. He spent the whole year recovering, and then Barcelona were able to sign him because a lot of the interest from other European clubs had died out because, of course, it's always a risk when you sign a player that just blew his ACL and has been out for a whole year recovering because you don't know how they're going to recover. So Barcelona saw this as a good market opportunity to bring a promising player for very little, 2.5 million euros. It didn't work out as we all expected or hoped that it would work out. So now Barcelona are looking to sell the player. Now, Roony Bardaghji was set to meet with Hansi Flick. The meeting has happened. Flick has told him that he doesn't count on him. More so even now, after Barcelona just signed Adeyemi and of course Anthony Gordon, and having Lamine and Rafinha, well, we're pretty full as far as wingers. So Flick has told Rooney that he doesn't count on him. So if Rooney wants to stay, he can. But he barely got any minutes last season, and well, he's gonna get even less minutes now that Barcelona have signed even more wingers. Now, Roony Bardaghji's agent has been in the city of Barcelona trying to figure out the future of the player. He has yet to meet with Deco because Deco, of course, was here in the U.S. Deco's trip ended up being longer than initially expected because then Spain made it to the final, so Deco ended up staying until the end of the World Cup. But Roony Bardaghji's agent is set to meet with Deco in the next few days, maybe next week, in order to sit down and talk about the future of Rooney. And in this meeting, it's expected that Deco will tell Roony Bardaghji's agent the same thing Flick told the player himself, which is that Barcelona don't count on him, and it's best for everybody involved for the player to go somewhere else. Now, as of now, Roony Bardaghji is not in favor of leaving. It's his dream to play at Barca. So if he has to leave, he prefers to leave on loan. But of course, Barcelona are now preferring that he goes on a permanent transfer because, again, they just signed Adeyemi. They just signed Anthony Gordon. So a loan still wouldn't make sense. It did before. Barcelona wanted a loan before because, a loan could maybe see if he can go somewhere else, get the minutes he needs, grow, develop, and then maybe come back and be more, and he can, be a better fit for the team. But now with Anthony Gordon and Adeyemi, unless he goes on a 5-year loan until Adeyemi or Anthony Gordon's contract expires, it doesn't make sense anymore to loan him out because next summer it would be the same problem, right? Rooney would come back and you still have Lamine, Rafinha, Adeyemi, and Anthony Gordon. So Barcelona now want a permanent transfer. The player prefers a loan, but again, Deco is set to meet with Roony Bardaghji Roony Bardaghji's agent in the next a few days or maybe next week, where the agent is expected to tell, or where Deco is expected to tell the agent the same thing Flick told Rooney, which is that the club don't count on him, and that the best solution would be to go somewhere else. Now, it's reported that Dortmund are very interested in Roony Bardaghji. In fact, speaking of Adeyemi, when Barcelona were negotiating the Adeyemi deal, Roony Bardaghji's name came up, where Dortmund were like, what about this guy? We kind of like him. So that's a club that's very interested. In Spain, Deportivo La Coruña are interested, and of course, there's other clubs in the Premier League, also in La Ligue 1. So if Rooney gets the message, sees the writing on the wall that it's better to go somewhere else on a permanent transfer, he's going to have plenty of options to go to. And of course, Barcelona will make a decent amount of money. His value currently is between 10 to 15 million. Even if Barcelona sell him at the low end of 10 million, Barcelona sign him for 2.5. So that's 4x in your investment. And this is why, I'm a strong proponent of signing young, promising players for very little. Because, look, if they work out, you just hit the jackpot, right? Pedri, we signed for 10 million. He's now the greatest midfielder in the world. Jackpot. And if they don't work out, who cares? 2.5 for Roony Bardaghji. We can make that up easily. Even if we sell him for 10 mil, which might not sound like a lot. Dude, that's 4 times your investment. 4x in your ROI is unheard of in the world of investment. Anyway, so let's get back to the comment section. And then we'll talk about Jules Kounde. Let's see. Gianni says Asllani almost signed with the Leipzig. Personal terms agreed. Just not that yem. It's about 25 to 29 mil. So they're saying he's still waiting a little bit for Barca to see what happens, but obviously he's not going to wait forever. Eventually he's going to sign with whomever he wants to sign. But he was set to move to Dortmund, and then he completely paused everything when he heard about Ferran leaving. And he was like, well, maybe now could be a good time to make my dreams come true, right? Because that has always been his dream. Asllani has said a million times in interviews that it's always been his dream to play for Barca. Ever since he was a little kid, he's posted pictures of him as a little kid with the Barca jersey on. So that's why he paused it. But of course, he's not going to wait forever. So Barcelona going to have to figure out quickly what they're going to do. The good thing is that the World Cup is over. I guess good thing. It's sad that it's over, but it's a good thing because, as you know, World Cups always pause the market by a lot. because many players are focused on the World Cup. They're not focused on what club they're gonna go to, things like that. So now that the World Cup is over for Julian, things should start moving a lot quicker. Also, other players too, right? So expect a lot more news now in the market now that the World Cup is over, now that players are no longer focused on the tournament. Expect a lot more movement, which of course, it's a great segue to me reminding you to subscribe to the channel, because there's going to be a lot of news in the next few weeks about the market and about the situation of players not just joining Barca, like Julian, but also players leaving Barca as well, like Ferran, or maybe even others. So make sure you're subscribed. Make sure the notification bell is on, because there's going to be a lot of news. And of course, if you want to stay on top of that news, well, I'll be here to tell you all about it. Anna says, oh, wait, I already read that. Wait, why are you spamming the chat with the same message, my friend? If you keep doing that, I am going to ban you, because that's not okay. I know you want me to read your comment, but there's other people here as well. And it's not okay to be spamming the chat section like that, drowning everyone else's comment. FSRP says this is a win-win for us, because Ferran needed to leave yesterday and we can actually make money off El Muerto ese. Now watch him leave to PSG and he becomes the next Ronaldo Nazario. I know, right? I've thought about that because, Dembele was such a bum for us for so many years. Always injured. And even when he was healthy, like he was like on and off, hot and cold, kind of like Marcus Rashford, where one match he would be, I don't know, the greatest winger in the world, and the next match he would be the worst winger in the world. And I was like, and now, he goes to PSG and he wins 2 Champions League back-to-back. He wins a Ballon d'Or. He wins a sextuple, which is historic in itself. And then I was like, wait, what if Ferran goes to PSG and becomes, the next freaking Lewandowski or something, which would be hilarious. I don't think so. Obviously, they're two different situations. I mean, can he improve? Maybe. But the thing about Dembele was always a diamond in the rough, right? We could always see the potential of Dembele, his speed, his dribbling abilities, the way he could just take on defenders, the way he could switch directions so easily, how explosive he was. I mean, he would go from 0 to 100 in a split second. I mean, the way he could accelerate and decelerate in such short period of time, the way he could play with both feet with ease, like he didn't have a weak leg, right? His shots, his passing, like his potential was always there. The problem is that at Barcelona, he was never committed, right? He constantly stayed up late. He ate junk food. He liked to party. He liked to stay up playing video games. And all that affects your performance by a lot, right? Because, I mean, these athletes are performing at incredibly high levels that the human body is not supposed to be performing at, right? So every little detail affects that, right? And the difference between staying healthy and getting injured could be something as simple as how much water you drink a day, or how many hours you get of sleep, or what you're eating, or things like that, right? In fact, it was Pep Guardiola who changed Leo Messi's diet, and since then, his injuries reduced a lot. And we're talking about Leo Messi, someone who's always been incredibly committed to his fitness, to his diet, to his greatness. And even he went from having a lot more muscle injuries to a lot less just by switching his diet thanks to Pep Guardiola. And Dembele, at Barca, he was just a hot mess, and that's why he was always injured. And finally, when he went to PSG, where he was a lot more mature, also his body was more mature, right? He was in his prime, and he took things more serious. So now he's able to realize the full potential that he always had, right? Ferran Torres is not that, right? We're not seeing a diamond in the rough. We see what Ferran is capable of. And, might he improve? Sure. But is he going to be, the next big thing now? Because he just doesn't have it in him. Zach Aaron says, saw someone call Ferran the greatest of sometimes. I've seen that too on social media. It's hilarious. But yeah, that's pretty much the best way to put it. Toon says, hey Mo, how crazy is it that Spain just win the World Cup without any Madrid players? I mean, it's not crazy, right? In 2010, they also had 8 Barcelona players, and the one that scored the winning goal was no other than Andres Iniesta, a Barcelona player, an academy player. Which, by the way, how crazy is that we went from Spain wins the 2010 World Cup thanks to Iniesta, and then 16 years later, the Iniesta of the team is fucking Ferran. Like, it couldn't be Pedri, it couldn't be Lamine. Hell, even Kouarsi with a header, that would have been amazing. No, it had to be Ferran. Oh my God. Let's see. Amkule says Sorloth is a good option from the bench, better than Ferran. I think so too. I think he's a good option of the bench. Again, I wouldn't sign him as the starting center forward, but I think off the bench, I think it would be a good option. And Akib Fardin says, we are so stacked in prospects right now. Tunkara, Cortez, Tommy, Xavi Sparta hopefully gives them more significant first team minutes. We could use the depth. No, I'm very excited for this preseason to see all these players in action. I think Tommy Marquez will get more first team minutes this season. I think Cortez as well. I don't know about Tunkara because maybe I guess that will depend a lot on the preseason, but I feel like Tunkara, he's still 15 years old. He's still pretty young. I think, a better place for him would be at Barca Athletic, getting more minutes, let him continue growing, continue developing, as opposed to just have him sit on the bench in the first team. And again, this has nothing to do with his potential because I think he's the biggest thing to come out of La Masia since Lamine Yamal. But, you got to give these players the time and the space to continue developing. You don't want to curtail that development by promoting them too soon to the first team. Because when you promote them too soon to the first team, regardless of how talented they are, they might not be 100% ready for the first team. So then they end up right in the bench where they could be in Barca Athletic, starting every single match and working and honing their skills, right? So I think Tunkara, he might still need a little bit more time, maybe another season. But as far as Tommy and Alvaro Cortez, we could see them maybe getting called up more often. I don't think if they're going to be the first team the entire season. We might see them going back and forth a lot. And Xavi Sparta, we'll see. This preseason is going to be big for the right back position, right? Is it going to be Xavi Sparta? Is it going to be Hector Fort? There's going to be some competition there. And of course, competition is always great. Competition only brings out the best from players. So I'm excited. I'm excited for this preseason a lot. Real Football says could be potentially get Barcola and include Ferran in that transaction, getting sort of difference maker like Yamal, but on the opposite side, Gordon being a backup for Alvarez. So there's no intention for Gordon to be the backup of the center forward, right? Gordon is being signed to be a left winger, same way Adeyemi is being signed to be also a winger. So no. I mean, Can Gordon play in that position as a center forward? Sure. But is that his strongest position? No. And as I've said on the channel here a million times, we should play players in their strongest positions. Just because they can play in a different position doesn't mean that that's where they should be, right? If they're stronger in another position, that's where they should be played. And obviously Gordon's a lot stronger on the left wing than he is as a center forward. Anyways, let's do the last bit of news. And then we'll do more comments. But let's talk about Jules Kounde, because the French defender has spoken about his future. Now, there's been a lot of speculation about Jules Kounde's future. Of course, he had a pretty bad season, let's put it that way, with Barcelona this last season. Very lazy, slow, constantly losing focus, making a lot of times, some very silly mistakes, some amateur mistakes. Very bad season by Jules Kounde. And of course, after that bad season, he no longer was untouchable for Barcelona. Now, this didn't mean that Barcelona were trying to place him on the market or that they were actively trying to sell him. But instead, they were now open to hearing offers, right? In other words, we're not putting it on for sale, but if a big offer comes for you, then we would consider it, right? This doesn't mean we would sell you for sure, but we would consider it. As opposed to being untouchable, it doesn't matter what kind of offer comes for you, you're not considering, right? If someone makes an offer for Lamine Yamal, it doesn't matter how big or small it is, we're not even looking at it. We're throwing it right in the shredder, right? Same for Kouarsi, right? And Kounde went from being that, an untouchable player, where it doesn't matter what they offer for him, we're not interested, to now, you're not for sale, but if a big offer comes, we would consider it. What's a big offer? Barcelona were thinking something around 70, 80 million. If a 70, 80 million euro offer comes for Kounde, then Barcelona would consider it. Now, Bayern Munich, knowing this, They were reportedly very interested in Kounde, but of course, first they need to offload players. And once that's done, they were willing to go all out for Jules Kounde. They believe that he will be a great addition for Bayern Munich. So between Barcelona, open to hearing offers, to Bayern Munich being very interested in signing Kounde, a lot of speculation started floating. What's going to happen with Kounde? Is he staying? Is he leaving? Where is he going? And while Kounde was asked this, hey, what's going to happen with your future? And this is what the French fullback had to say. What I hope is to have a great season, to rest well first, so I can come back stronger, to have an even better season, and to help Barca as much as possible. So there you have it, folks. Direct to the point. He wants to rest. He wants to come back and have a strong season for Barcelona. In other words, Jules Kounde is not looking to leave. Now, what's my opinion? I think Kounde is an incredible fullback when he's focused, when he's having a good season. He's one of the best fullbacks in Europe. This past season was horrendous. I've said it a million times whenever we did match reviews, but every season before that, he has been absolutely solid. And to me, it would be a little bit premature to try to sell him right away, because if you've had 3-4 good seasons and then one bad season, you want to get rid of the player because of that one bad season, I think it's a little bit premature. I think we've all seen what Kounde is capable of. I think he's a really good fullback. He actually had a really good World Cup with France. So if Kounde can get back to what he was before last season, I think he will be, again, an incredible fullback to have. But if not, if we see another bad season, then yes, I would be like, let's absolutely sell him. But just for one bad season, I don't think that's enough for me, because he's had a lot more incredible seasons than bad ones. So right now, his net overall is a positive one. Is a positive net as far as good seasons versus bad ones. Now, if next season we still see the same Kounde, then yeah, absolutely get rid of him. But anyways, let me know what you guys think about Jules Kounde announcing that he wants to stay at Barca. He wants to, fight for to have the stronger season. Let me know down below in the comment section or in the chat section if you're watching this live. And speaking of the chat section, let's do a few more comments, and then we will end this. Wiz says, will Flick adjust his highline this season? Yes or no? I don't know. That's a question for him, not for me. DC says, if Julian Alvarez doesn't go as planned, I would like Junior Krupi at Barca. That is the favorite option for Barcelona if Julian Alvarez doesn't work out. Amkule says, I would sell FDJ. His heart is not with us. I don't know if it's a heart thing, but Frankie de Jong is definitely, for me, has been a disappointment. I don't think we ever got to see the Frankie from Ajax at Barca. I think Frankie has had a lot of ups and downs. Whenever he's had good matches, he's been absolutely great. But whenever he's had bad matches, he's also been pretty horrendous. He's been incredibly inconsistent. I mean, this World Cup was pretty bad World Cup, especially the match they get eliminated in. And then after the match, he goes and just blames it on Koeman and says, oh, it's the setup and blah, blah. And it's like, bro, you're supposed to be a leader. You're supposed to be, this experienced veteran midfielder. Not only do you do horribly, but then you go and blame it on someone else. Like, I don't know. To me, it's been a disappointment. Very inconsistent. Lots of ups and downs. And for the amount of money that we paid for his transfer, his salaries, his bonus, all that, he never really was that midfielder that I say, okay, Frankie's on the field, he's about to change things. Frankie has always been that kind of midfielder that he does as well as the match is going. In other words, if the match is going great, then Frankie's having a great match. And if the match is going bad, then Frankie's having a terrible match. He's never the kind of midfielder that can change things around. Where, we're having a bad match, Frankie's on, and now we're having a great match, right? He's always does as good as the match is doing. And I've also seen Frankie really suffer without Pedri right next to him. And to me, he's just been a disappointment, honestly. He's still a very talented midfielder, incredible midfielder, but very inconsistent. Let's see. Hernan says, no way someone just suggested Raul Jimenez would be better off with Arpanto. Yeah, I know. I mean, the guy's 35. I wonder what's going to happen to him now that Wolves got relegated. But anyways. Johnny says, wait, Infantino, is that you? Just kidding. It would be premature, in my opinion, to sell Balde. Now, Kounde, I feel like he doesn't care about football anymore. Also, he used to be so fast. Nowadays, he's super slow and sluggish. If an offer for 70 million or more, sell. I mean, I don't know. I thought he had a pretty World Cup. So, obviously, Kounde can be good. We've seen him be good for Barca. We've seen him be good in the World Cup. So, we know he can be good. He had one bad season. Let's hope he can correct that. But if not, if he has another one, then yeah, absolutely. Let's see. What else? Jabba the Hutt says, did you see how Trump stayed on stage when Spain were lifting the World Cup? I felt sad when Argentina lost, but I laughed so hard after seeing him do that. By the way, speaking of that, Spain published a picture, of course, of their team lifting the World Cup, and they edited them out. And FIFA did the same. They posted a picture of Spain lifting the World Cup, and they also removed, edited them out. But man, that's what dementia looks like, ladies and gentlemen. Gianni says closer to Antetokounmpo than Infantino. Not gonna lie. Oh man, and Akib says I have high hopes for Brian Farinas to step up and take FDJ's spot. Been following, kid is very versatile. So Farinas is that player that Flick just blocked. He was supposed to go to Girona, and Flick said absolutely not. I want him in my preseason, and then we'll decide. But if anyone I think can kind of take FDJ's spot, even though I still think a little bit too early, I think it will be Tommy Marquez. Hunter says, I hope the Spain World Cup win motivates our players to win the Champions League this season. That would be great. It's been a long time coming. Visca Barca. I hope so too, my friend. I truly, truly hope so. And then with the signings we've made and with the signings that we're hopefully will make even more, I hope that truly, truly happens. But anyways, that is all, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you so much for tuning in. Don't forget to hit the like button. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel. And also drop a comment letting me know your thoughts and opinions about everything I share with you. And with that, Visca Barca.